Hello everyone, this is Mundundagavan. In today's video, we are going to start with asynchronous JavaScript. Before starting the asynchronous JavaScript, we are going to understand what actually asynchronous code is. By default, JavaScript will be synchronous and blocking and single-threaded. Synchronous is nothing but each statement will be executed one after another sequentially. Blocking is nothing but, let's say, if one of the statement or one of the action, it might be anything like connecting to the database or calling any API service and waiting for the response. If anything just makes some wait time, so that will be blocking the sequence of execution. So that will be the blocking. And single threaded, as we discussed here, it will be executed by only single thread of the JavaScript so that there is no multi-threading by default in JavaScript. Just to simulate, we have some dummy code here, which will just to simulate the actual code in real time. For example, let's say you are opening the Windows machine, you are running the VS Code and syncing VS Code with Git repo. So let's say you have some Git repo and you need to sync with the Git repo. And after that, you are making the new JS file. So if you execute synchronously, so what will happen? Just go to the terminal, execute. So let me save it. So it will execute one by one or one after another sequentially, which will be the synchronous process. But in this drawback is, let's say the syncing time between the VS Code with the Git repo, if it takes more time, let's say 3 or 4 seconds extra. So till that time, the making new JS file will be waiting for that. So that means that it is blocking the execution of next sequential of lines. So that's the drawback in the asynchronous and blocking single threaded code. Let's consider the asynchronous. So asynchronous is nothing but if anything takes time or time consuming task, let's say connecting to the database or calling the API and waiting for the response. If anything is time consuming, that will be going to the background and it will be continuing for the next statements, which will be called as a non-blocking code. And since it's working simultaneously with the background process as well as the current process, that will be called as a asynchronous. So that means that it's not waiting for the task to be completed to continue on the next task. So for that, we will be seeing here dummy code. But for this, we will be using the asynchronous function, or let's say the set timeout function from the JavaScript. In previous video, we have seen a little bit about the set timeout, but we will again recollect. A set timeout is the function. The first argument will be the callback function, and second argument will be your waiting time. By means that if you give some function and you are telling after how many seconds it has to execute. So that means that till that time it will be waiting, just to simulate the real-time events or waiting event. So we are making such that the syncing event will take 3 seconds. So after 3 seconds only, we will be getting the response, or we will be getting the completion of the syncing. So for that purpose, we are using the set timeout. And in this callback function will be going to the background, and that callback function will be executed only after given a number of seconds. For example, here 3000 milliseconds, which will reflect as a 3 seconds. If you try to execute this one, you can clearly understand, since it's taking 3 seconds waiting time for syncing, it will not wait for the waiting time. It will go directly to the next line. Here you can see 1, 2, 4. It was waiting for 3 seconds, and after that, it is displaying the syncing VS Code with Git repo. So by this, you can clearly understand asynchronous process will help us not to wait for the time consuming task. It will be continuously working with the next lines of code, or it can be like a non-blocking code. So this is the main difference about the synchronous and asynchronous process. And you can clearly understand what is blocking and non-blocking code. So in this example, we have the set timeout, and set timeout has the callback function. So by understanding this one, we are using callbacks for the asynchronous process. However, all the callbacks will not be the asynchronous process. For example, array.forEach will not be the asynchronous process. There are some functions, let's say, for example, here we have set timeout or set interval. So those are the functions will be considered as the asynchronous functions, which will receive the callback function, and it will be having the, let's say, the timings. Like that, if you just go to the, let's say, web programming, or let's say website creation, you will be having the different kinds of events. For example, on click event, on mouse over event. So you will be having the event listener. So it will be waiting for the event that has to happen. Till the time it will be going to the background. So till now, I'm just telling about it is going to the background, and after that it will be executing. What actually happens behind the screen? Here you can see the overall picture about the event loop and how event loops works with the heap, stack, and web APIs, and how it will be interacting with the callback queue. For example, let's say heap will be the place where you will be having all the, let's say, the memory location for all the objects. And stack will be the area where you will be having the execution of the functions. And in our example, we have the set time mode, which comes under the timings under the web APIs. So when you make any timings for the functions, that time you will be using the set time mode. Then what will happen? Let's get into the stack. So the stack will be having the current context for the executing function. Once you get into the set time mode, it will find out it is the asynchronous process. It will be just pointing to the callback queue. And event loop is the one, or event loop you can consider as the orchestration, or let's say the manager, which will keep on looking into the stack as well as the callback queue. Whenever it finds the asynchronous process or asynchronous functions, that will be just getting the callback function, and it will be just placing into the callback queue. And after that, it will be executing the next line of codes as we discussed here. So it will be going to the next line. If it is a function, it will be getting into the new context of that function. It will be executing. It will be keep on continuing until all the codes completes. Once you find the stack is empty, then the event loop will be getting the callback functions from the callback queue. One by one, it will start executing. So this means that event loop is the one who will be just making sure that all the functions are working inside the stack. It's getting its own, let's say, the execution context. Whenever it gets the asynchronous calls or asynchronous code, so that will be getting the callbacks and it will be putting into the callback queue. Then event loop, it actually monitors the callback queue, and it actually monitors the stack as well. Whenever the stack is empty, it will be getting the callbacks functions from the callback queue, and it will be just putting into the stack, which will be executing again. So in our example, if you just go to our code again, so the statement will start from here. So the line number 9, so it will be opening the Windows machine. Line number 2, running the VS Code, and line number 11, it will be getting the asynchronous code, and it has the callback function. The callback function will be going to the callback queue. Then it is popping out the set timeout because it has already put into the callback queue. So now what will happen is it will go to the next line. It is a simple console.log making new JS file. It will continue. After completing this, let's say line number 12, it does not have anything. That means that stack is empty. Then after that, event loop will always pick that from the, let's say it will pick the callback function from the callback queue. So in our case, it has only the console.log statement, which will be printing the syncing VS Code with the Git repo. And if you don't remember what is callback, a callback is a function passed as an argument to another function, which will be used in the later stage. In our case, it will be used after the predefined time. So in this way, we have understood what is synchronous code and asynchronous code, what is blocking and non-blocking. And we have seen one example, set timeout function, which will have the callback function, which will be executed after a certain point of time. And we have understood it will be going to the background. So what is happening in the background? We have seen what is the callback queue, what is the event loop, and what is the stack and heap. So this is all about the introduction on the asynchronous code. In coming videos, we will understand what are the disadvantages inside the callbacks and what are the other things such as like promises, async, and wait. So thanks all. Thanks for watching and have a great day.